Okay, good afternoon. So today we are going to discuss Karl Marx. Okay. See, the purpose of this session is to give you an overall view on each thinker. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll be covering all the thinkers, all the six thinkers of Sociology Optional Paper 1, and each day we will be covering a single thinker. So today we'll be covering Karl Marx, and by around 2 hours, I think we'll be able to complete Karl Marx. See, this session is not meant for those who are attending this class for the first time. The precondition for attending this session is you must have already read Karl Marx, because we'll be covering the entire Karl Marx in just 2 hours. So I don't think a beginner will be able to follow this session. Second thing is, we will not be covering the very basics of Karl Marx. Instead, we'll be focusing on uh, kind of an advanced level things in Karl Marx, like what exactly his theories. Okay, we'll be focusing on how to approach Karl Marx, like how to study Karl Marx, how to memorize Karl Marx concepts so that you can easily recollect and you can write it in your answers. Because one thing that I've seen mostly when it comes to students is they are not able to, even if they study the portions, they are not able to reproduce it, right? One of the major reason for that is you guys are trying to by heart these portions. You are not trying to understand what actually Karl Marx is actually mentioning in his theory. Instead, you keep on by hearting the points that is written in the notes. And when you by heart the points that are written in the notes, and if you try to write it in your exams, most probably you will end up forgetting the points and you will not be able to write good answers. Instead, you don't have to memorize each and every word in the material. If you know the concept really well, you will be able to write these things on your own in the answers. You don't have to recollect anything, you don't have to memorize anything. Only thing that you need to do is you have to use the keywords, because for every thinker, for every theory that you learn in sociology, there will be certain important keywords, like there will be at least like 3 to 4 keywords in each and every concept. You have to bring those key concepts and keywords in the answer. Everything else you can write it in your own terms. Is it clear? Okay, so don't commit that mistake of trying to reproduce whatever is written in the book. Okay, so the purpose of this session is also to give you that approach, like how to exactly approach Karl Marx, how to learn it like a story, because that's what I usually tell the students, like you have to learn each and every thinker as a story. Their concept should be there in your mind as a story, so that no matter when or how people ask you the question related to that thinker, you will be comfortably able to reproduce it. Okay, so my first question to you is, before we start with the session, what is the basic thing that Karl Marx discussed in his concept? What is the base idea of Karl Marx? If you want to say what is the subject matter of sociology according to Karl Marx, what is it? Social change. See, Karl Marx tried to learn or study or understand social change. When you look into entire theories of Marx, everywhere he is trying to explain how change happens, what was the history of change, right? What is the future of society, or how will change take place in the future? So that was the major focus of Marx in almost entire studies. Just give me a second. Is it clear? Are you able to follow? Okay. So, in order to understand Marx better, what we'll do is you need to understand Marx or his studies in 4 different topics. First is, what is society? Okay. Then second is, how change take place in society. Then what was the history of change or history of society. Here we will be trying to cover the changes that has happened in the past through Marx lens or Marxian lens. Then finally, we will be covering the future of society or future of change in society. Is it clear? Okay. So, when we discuss about what is society, Karl Marx explained or tried to explain society by using the concept of, just give me a second. Okay, mode of production. Yeah. See, he tried to explain the nature of society by the concept mode of production. So, what is mode of production? That is where we are going to start our session. It is the base of the society. Relations of production, forces of production are components of mode of production. So, what exactly is mode of production? Okay, how production is organized in the society, that is mode of production, right? So, how production takes place in society is explained by using the concept of mode of production by Marx. Because when it comes to that of the Marxian theory, you need to understand he takes production as the base of everything that is happening in society. Because Marxian explanation of society is from a materialistic point of view, right? So when it comes to materialistic point of view, he is giving emphasis to that of production. Are you getting the idea? Right? So that is why when it comes to that of the nature of society or how he tried to explain society, he used the concept of mode of production, and mode of production is nothing but it refers to the productive organization of society or how production is organized in society. Now, when it comes to how production is organized in society, you need to consider two important elements. What are those two important elements when it comes to mode of production? Relations of production and forces of production. So, when it comes to Marx, another important aspect that you need to understand is, according to Marx, if you want to understand any society, you need to understand how production is taking place in all those societies. Because the way the production is carried out in each and every society determines all other aspects of society. Okay, let's take the example of feudal society. Okay, the social institutions in feudal society, right? The social practices in feudal society, everything is determined by based on how the production is taking place there. The type of production taking place in feudal society is the feudal mode of production. As a result, the relations of production is between that of the lords and serfs, right? The means of production is also related to that of agriculture. So whatever is the kind of production that is being taking place in that society will determine all other aspects of society. So in order to understand in a better way, Marx mentioned that there are two aspects when it comes to that of mode of production, which is the forces of production and the relations of production. Right? So what is forces of production? It deals with the physical means of production, meaning whatever physical means are used in order to produce goods, right? Say for example, land, then machinery, tools, everything is covered under the physical means of production plus labor. Why Marx consider labor as something which is different from that of the physical means of production? Because when in economics, when we learn about the forces of production or means of production, we include whatever is included in that: land, labor, capital, and organization. But according to Marx, physical means of production is separate and labor is separate. Why? Hmm. Labor is the most. Okay, it is the pivotal aspect of forces of production. Okay. Why is it the pivotal aspect of forces of production? Huh. Surplus values generated. Okay. Huh. Okay, basic essence of human being is to participate in the production process. But when we are discussing about the forces of production, why labor is considered to be separate? It is just because of the fact that if merely the physical forces of production are present in a society, it will not convert itself into a product. Labor is something that converts these physical means of produce or production into the final product. Without labor, production does not take place. Is it clear? So that is why Marx give emphasis to that of labor, because even if all other physical means of production are present in the society, without labor, it will not convert itself by themselves into a final product. So for anything to be converted into a product, labor is required. Is it clear? And also the points that you guys have mentioned is also correct, because it is by exploiting the labor that the haves are getting profits, right? And also it is the basic essence of human beings to participate in the production process. So for all those reasons, you have to understand Marx consider labor as the pivotal aspect of production, and that is why it is considered to be separate from other physical means of production. Is it clear? Then next is the relations of production. So what is covered in the relations of production? Okay, haves and have-nots are the basic classification of relations of production. See, the relations of production explains how the production is carried out and what are the relations associated with production. So whenever there is production or production is taking place in a particular society, there will be certain kind of relations associated with production. And mostly the relations are in the form of those who own the means of production or the forces of production and those who do not own the forces of production. And that is how we classify these into haves and have-nots. Is it clear? So mode of production is the way the production is organized in the society. There are two aspects when it comes to that of mode of production, which is the forces of production, which includes physical means of production and labor, and relations of production consist of haves and have-nots. That is those who own the forces of production and those who do not own the forces of production. See, when it comes to that of the Marxian model of classes, there are only two classes, right? We always say that the Marxian model is a bipolar model. Why is it considered to be a bipolar model? Because for Marx, there are only two classes based on the ownership. Those who own the forces and those who do not own the forces. According to Marx, all other intermediary classes will ultimately be included in the have-nots. That is how he explained the term, like you might have come across the term proletarianization. What does it mean? Because all the intermediary classes will be included into the have-nots. Is it clear? We'll be discussing about that in the later part. For now, you have to understand mode of production and the classification associated with that. Now, from this also, we have to understand another important concept of Marx, which is economic determinism. That will also help us to understand the nature of society according to Marx. According to Marx, when you understand the society or if you are trying to understand society, it is important that you need to also be aware of the fact that those who own the means of production or the economic mode of production in a society determines all other aspects of society. For explaining this, he used the term, what is the term that was used by Marx? Economic determinism. Right? According to Marx, economic determinism means the economic base or the mode of production in a society will be controlling all other aspects of society. This is the reason why we say that Marxian explanation of society is a materialistic explanation. Is it clear? Have you got the idea? Okay. Now, let us try to understand economic determinism much more deeply. Okay. So, according to Marx, when it comes to that of the mode of production, as we have already discussed, there is relations of production, right? In relations of production, we already mentioned that there are the owning class and the non-owning class. Owning class means those who own the forces of production. Now, as they are owning the forces of production, the entire mode of production will be controlled by the owning class or the haves. Clear? And according to Marx, in a society, we can represent a society in a following way. The base structure or the infrastructure of society consists of the mode of production. And as I have already mentioned, mode of production controls the superstructure. That is, all other institutions and social aspects are included in the superstructure, which is controlled by the base structure. And as the base structure or the mode of production is controlled by the haves, the superstructure will also be controlled by the haves. Meaning, in a society, all institutions, including the education system, the political system, religion, family, media, all aspects are controlled by the haves. This is referred to as economic determinism, meaning economic mode of production determines all other aspects of society. Can you give me a few examples of economic determinism in contemporary society? Politics. Okay, you can use the term crony capitalism. Right, crony capitalism can be mentioned as an example of economic determinism because the political policies, right, the political classes to a larger extent influenced by the economic class or the haves. Right, there is always this allegation where the ruling party will be associated with that of the corporates, right? The major corporates will always be connected with that of the ruling party because of that crony capitalism thing. Now, that is an example of Marxian aspect of economic determinism. Also, you can mention examples from the past. See, as you might have already read through the sociology optional papers, right? You might have come across the influence of industrialization in almost every social institution. And when it comes to emergence of sociology, industrialization have a role, right? When it comes to that of changes in religion, there is a role for industrialization. When it comes to that of the family, there is a role for industrialization because it is believed that industrialization has led to growth of nuclear families, right? When it comes to that of the stratification system, from estate based system or caste system, there is a transition to that of the class based system that is also associated with industrialization. Now, industrialization, which is an economic change, has led to changes in all other institutions in the society, whether it is the education system, whether it is political system. Even the political system is also associated with that of, or changes in political system is associated with that of changes in economic system. Industrialization has also led to democratization, right? Colonialism is associated with that of industrialization. Are you getting the point? So this is economic determinism, where the economic base structure influences and changes the superstructure. You can also mention about LPG reforms in India. An economic system, change in economic system has led to changes in several other institutions, including that of education system, right? When it comes to that of urbanization, right? Job market, skill requirements, those are also economic aspects, but still the policy level changes were also there, right? Is it clear? We can also associate that of LPG reforms, which is an economic change, with that of growing fundamentalism, because increasing inequality in the society has also led to the growth of fundamental forces, right? So likewise, you can mention or connect that of the changes in economic system with the changes in several other institutions in society. Is it clear, everyone? So that is with economic determinism. I hope it is clear. If you have any doubts, you can ask the doubts. So this is an image that you can use to understand the nature of change. Pan India. Okay. Okay. So, is it clear? Okay. Now, next is economic determinism, and yeah. See, there is one more thing that when it comes to economic determinism, you have to also understand that there is a slight confusion with regards to that of the impact of base structure on superstructure. Orthodox Marxian schools say that the relation between that of the base structure and superstructure is restrictive or absolute, meaning base structure will in all aspects control superstructure. But the neo-Marxian thinkers say that there is a kind of relative autonomy of superstructure, meaning the relation between the base structure and superstructure is rather it is relative, or it is kind of, it's not absolute in the sense. Okay, it is prescriptive rather than restrictive. It means that superstructure will change on its own without influenced by the base structure. but largely the superstructure will be shaped by the base structure. For example, small level changes in superstructure may not be induced by the base structure. For example, when it comes to that of the new education policy, right? The new education policy that was recently passed in India was not associated with any economic change. So that means education system, which is part of the superstructure, changed on its own without having any kind of influence from that of the base structure. Is it clear? Okay. So that is what you have to also understand. There are two aspects or viewpoints with regards to that of the relation between the base structure and superstructure. Orthodox Marxian school mentions that the relation between that of the base structure and superstructure is restrictive, meaning it is absolute. That is, base structure will always influence the superstructure. But the neo-Marxian school say that the relation is rather prescriptive, or it is relative, in the sense that there is some kind of autonomy enjoyed by the superstructure. It need not always be influenced, or that some slight changes can happen on its own in the superstructure. Thinkers. Yeah, it is restrictive. Sorry. Prescriptive is by the orthodox Marxian. Yeah, it is restrictive by the neo-Marxian. Okay. Is it clear? See, it is like absolute and relative, right? When it comes to that of the orthodox Marxians, they say that it is absolute. But when it comes to neo-Marxians, they say that it is relative, in the sense some level of autonomy is enjoyed by the superstructure. For that, you can quote example of NEP. Okay, is it clear? All right. Now, let's move on to some criticisms of economic determinism. No, okay. What are the few criticisms that you can come up with when it comes to economic determinism? Okay. See, whenever you learn a theory or a concept, you need to understand that if you have understood that theory really well, you will definitely be able to come up with the criticisms on your own. Okay, you don't have to refer to the text. Because here, when we learn about economic determinism, we said that, the base structure will completely influence the superstructure, meaning the economic system on its own will influence all other aspects of society, whether it is religion, education, politics, or anything. Is that true? No, not always. Yeah, that is the correct point, right? See, the economic system can influence other aspects of society, but it doesn't mean that the relationship is absolute. And in certain cases, the relationship can be reversed as well, whereby the changes in the superstructure may lead to changes in the base structure. An example for that is Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism. Right? Have you ever come across that particular term? Yeah, who studies that? Weber's study of Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism mentions that it is the Protestant ethic that has led to emergence of capitalism, meaning the change or the religion has led to changes in base structure. Religion is part of the superstructure, economic system is part of the base structure. So as a result, you can say that Marx has to a larger extent oversimplified it, where he say that only the economic system will lead to changes in other systems. Other systems may change on its own, or other systems can also change the economic system, as mentioned by Weber. Is it clear? Marx did not consider any other factors. He only considered that of the economic system. Right? For example, in India, caste system also plays a major role when it comes to determining other aspects, like, say, for example, politics is largely influenced in India by caste. Right? Religion influences education. So likewise, there are several other systems that can induce change in society. It's not just the economic system. Right? Is it clear? New ideas can also bring change. Right? Consider the case of LGBTQ rights. Right? Queer movements. Right? It started as an idea. Then it started spreading across the globe, and it has also brought changes in the attitude of people regarding that of the LGBTQ community. Right? So likewise, ideas can also bring changes in society. It is not just the economic system. So that can also be written as a criticism for the Marxian theory of economic determinism. Clear? Okay. Now let us move on to the next part, which is, so by or when you consider the topics mode of production as well as economic determinism, that is how Marx explains the nature of society. So, to understand the nature of society, we need to understand mode of production and economic determinism. Is it clear? So, what is the nature of society? ah, it is determined by the base. What consists of the base? Yeah, mode of production. So, see, ultimately the conclusion is, what is the nature of society according to Marx? It is materialistic, right? And the changes in society will also be induced by material changes. So that is the nature of society according to Marx, and that is how we explain mode of production and economic determinism. Clear? All right. So as we have covered the nature of society, now let us focus on how change happen in a society. Now this is again very simple and easy to understand. So in order to discuss the nature of change, sorry, how change happen in society, you need to understand dialectics and dialectical idealism first. So what is dialectics? Okay, dialectics means contradictions. So what do you exactly mean by contradictions? Okay, that is dialectical idealism. Okay, contradictions causes change in society. Okay, see, dialectics is a kind of development based on intellectual debates or discussions. That is known as dialectics. Okay, in earlier times there used to be these kind of intellectual discussions and debates, and based on these debates, see, whenever there is a debate, that means there is a for side and the against side. That means there are two different viewpoints. Now, out of these two viewpoints, a new viewpoint will emerge, and that is how the changes happen in society. So, according to the dialectic principles, contradiction is generally considered to be negative, right? But according to dialectics, contradictions are positive and constructive, because it is from contradictions that the changes happen in society. Is it clear? So it is a kind of an intellectual development or development based on intellectual debates or discussions that is centered around contradictions. That is exactly meant by dialectics. Okay. Now, Hegel used this dialectics into his idea of or his concept of dialectical idealism. Now, what do you mean by idealism? We have understood what is dialectic. It is nothing but a kind of debates or discussions based on contradictions, and these contradictions will lead to change. That is dialectics. So, what is idealism? Yeah, idealism means ideas are the ultimate reality, meaning it is from ideas that everything else come into being, or everything exists in society based on ideas or development of ideas, right? That is all with idealism. So according to Hegel, the Geist, consciousness or ideas, all these terms are interchangeably used. Geist means the consciousness or ideas. It is from this consciousness or ideas that the social reality is built, right? Our viewpoint regarding each and every thing, say for example our viewpoints on religion, our viewpoints on family, our viewpoints on the economic system, everything is based on the ideas that emerge in society, right? The ideas can influence the way we view the society, the way we construct the social reality, right? Because whatever I hear from my childhood will have an influence on my outlook towards that particular thing. Say for example patriarchy. How is patriarchy being continued in society? It is through socialization, right? It is through certain ideas that we actually, get hold of in our childhood, through the socialization process, through the interaction process. So, according to Hegel, idea is the idea creates ultimate reality, as well as idea is also a major source of change in society. How can idea act as a change or an agent of change in society? That was explained by using the concept of dialectical idealism by Hegel. According to Hegel, in every society there will be a set of ideas which we can call as theses, and in that society over a period of time a counter or an alternative idea will emerge which can be referred to as antithesis. Now, based on the dialectics, based on the contradictions, because we already discussed what is the dialectics, it means change based on contradictions, right? So the contradiction between these two ideas will lead to development of a new idea which will be referred to as, or which can be referred to as, synthesis. Okay, over a period of time an alternative idea will develop for this synthesis as well. As a result, the synthesis will become again a new thesis. Maybe we can refer it to as thesis number 2. For that, there will be an alternative idea which is antithesis number 2, which will ultimately lead to again creation of a new idea which will become the new synthesis. According to Hegel, this process or this dialectics between ideas will go on until we reach the ultimate truth. Okay, so this can go on until we reach the ultimate truth. Is it clear, everyone? So this is the concept of dialectical idealism. So first we need to know what is dialectics, then we need to know what is idealism, and by combining these two, that is the concept of dialectical idealism, which means an idea that exists in the society over a period of time will be countered by an alternative idea which will become an antithesis, and over a period of time what will happen, these two will merge and become synthesis. Okay, see, when these two merge, what you need to understand is elements of both thesis and antithesis will be present in synthesis. It is not like an idea will overpower or dominate another one. Instead, it will be a mix of these two ideas. Is it clear? So maybe you can take this as an example. Capitalism as an ideology emerged. As a counter alternative, socialism emerged, and as a synthesis of these two, mixed economy emerged. Right? That can be taken as an example for this. Is it clear? All right? All set? Now, what Marx did was, Marx did not like the idea of the change happening due to ideas because, sorry? Can you tell the example once more? See, basically, when it comes to the economic systems in the world, first capitalism emerged, right? Based on the idea of free market. Then, as an alternative, socialism emerged in the later stages, right? Because initially it was capitalism, Adam Smith, and wealth of nations, and after that, socialism as an idea emerged, as a counter idea emerged. And based on these alternative ideas, based on the contradictions or dialectics, we can say that a new form of economic system developed, which was mixed economy, which had elements of both capitalism and socialism. Is it clear? So this is how we can understand that dialectical idealism. You can quote this as an example for that. Over a period of time, what will happen? A new counter alternative for mixed economy will arise. That will lead to a new synthesis, which will then become thesis. An alternative idea will develop, and it will go on until we reach the ultimate reality or ultimate truth. Okay, that is what was mentioned by Hegel. Clear? So Marx did not accept that the ideas can act as an agent of change, because Marx and his idea of society is materialistic, right? He was influenced by another German thinker, Feuerbach, where he mentioned about materialism. Now, the difference between idealism and materialism is that when idealism say that ideas are the ultimate source of social reality, ideas are the source of social change, materialism say that material conditions are the source of ultimate reality. And it is the material conditions that will lead to changes in society. Clear? So what Marx did was he took the idea of dialectics, but instead of accepting idealism, he connected it with that of materialism. So there came the next concept that we are going to discuss, which is dialectical materialism. So what exactly is dialectical materialism? It means changes happen in the dialectical form, okay, based on contradictions. But the contradictions does not take place between two contradicting ideas. Instead, the contradiction takes place between the material conditions. And to be more precise, according to Marx, the contradictions in a society takes place between the emerging forces of production and the existing relations of production. Now we are going to discuss this concept. So what do you exactly mean by contradiction between emerging forces of production and existing relations of production? According to Marx, there is a particular mode of production in a society, right? Because at every point of time, there will be a prominent mode of production in society, which is the prominent way in which the production takes place in society. Clear? Now, for every mode of production, as we have already discussed, there is a, what are the two components of mode of production? Forces of production is there, as well as relations of production is also there. Okay. Now, when you look into the nature of forces of production and relations of production, you must understand that the forces of production will develop faster when it comes to that of the relations of production, because the forces of production is quantitative in nature, but at the same time relations of production are qualitative in nature, right? So the faster changes will take place in forces of production. Now, when you compare the society, there were faster changes when it comes to that of the production technology, right? Because when it comes to that of the primitive communism, where we used to hunt using the naturally available stones and bricks and stuff, later we developed metals. Then we started using the metal tools and metal things for hunting. Then later on we started developing tools to do agriculture. Then we invented engines. After that, now we have reached a stage where we are even able to bring artificial rains, right? So the level of development of forces of production have always been faster compared to that of the development in relations of production. So according to Marx, when the forces of production emerge, or the quantitative aspect of the production, which is the forces of production, that develop beyond a particular point, what happens is, for the further development of forces of production, the existing relations of production will act as a hindrance, and that will lead to a conflict between the emerging forces of production and the existing relations of production. Now, at the end of this, what will happen? Based on this conflict, a new relations of production will emerge in society that will lead to creation of a new mode of production. Okay, now I'll explain this using an example. Let us try to understand how this change has taken place from feudal society to that of capitalist society. Now, let us take the feudal mode of production. So, there is FOP and ROP. So, what is the forces of production when it comes to that of feudal mode of production? Land is there, then agricultural tools are there, agricultural techniques and tools and all those stuff are there. Then when it comes to relations of production in feudal society, there is feudal lords and serfs. Is it clear? So forces of production consist of all agriculture related tools and stuff. When it comes to that of relations of production, it consists of feudal lords and serfs. Now, according to Marx, forces of production started improving because it will always keep improving, right? Because we are inventing new technologies and new machines. As a result, what happened? we invented steam engines, right? And with the invention of steam engines also started what? We are able to, or we will be able to produce goods from factories by using machines. So there was development of machinery due to improvements in technology, right? Now what happened is, as the steam engines have started, or we have invented steam engines, and there is a possibility for us to produce in factories, but for the development of this new force of production, the existing relations of production, that is the lords and serfs, acted as a hindrance. How did it act as a hindrance? Because the serfs are tied to the land of the lords. Right? The relation in the feudal relation is serf will be working in the lord's land and they are tied to the land, meaning that connection between the serf and lord is permanent in nature. Now, for the development of factories, by using the new forces of production, you need free and mobile labor. Free in the sense they should not be tied to anyone's land, and the labor should be mobile. They should be able to move from one location to another location. So, for the development of industries or for the development of new forces of production, the existing relations of production acted as a hindrance, and as a result, there was conflict between the emerging forces of production and the existing relations of production. Now, based on the emerging forces of production, new classes will also start appearing in the society. Now, as factories started developing, the new classes that will be developing in the society will be the industrial class. Now, this industrial class want this relations of production, right? They want to take down this relations of production so that they can establish a new relations of production which will further lead to expansion of the industrial system. Now, in this fight between the emerging forces of production and the emerging classes and the existing classes, who will win? The emerging classes will win. Why does that happen? Because the existing have-nots or the serfs will extend their support to the emerging classes. Why does that happen? Because according to Marx, in every relations of production, there is contradiction between the interest of the classes, which is known as, there is always a kind of class conflict or antagonism between the classes. Now, in this system of feudal lords and serfs, serfs are at the receiving end, they are exploited, right? Because even though serfs get a portion of what they produce, but the amount that is used by the lords are significant when it comes to that of the kind of work put in by the serfs in those land. As a result, they will always have a feeling of being exploited, right? They will always be striving for new opportunities, right? They want to improve their condition. Now, the emerging classes, on the other hand, will be offering them a better life or will be promising them to offer a better life. The new emerging capitalist class will tell them that you are free, you are not tied to anyone's land. For whatever work you do, you will get wages for that. Now, this is a new and attractive system for the serfs, right? So, they will definitely side with that of the emerging classes. As a result, in this conflict between the emerging class of capitalists and the existing class of lords, lords will be defeated and a new relations of production will come up, which is, on one hand it will be the capitalist and the other side it will be the proletariats or the workers. This is how new mode of production, which is capitalistic mode of production, will emerge in society. Clear? Labor. Hmm. Hmm. See, labor in the sense see, labor is definitely, yeah, labor is definitely part of the forces of production because in order to produce something we need labor. Now, in relations of production, we are discussing about how that relationship between or the production relations actually take place, because there will always be two classes, which is one is the owning class and the other is non-owning class. So one is the relations, the other one is how the production will be taking place, right? So Now here, I'll just go through this example once again. So as we have discussed, when it comes to that of the feudal mode of production, there is forces of production and there is relations of production. Forces of production are directly associated with that of the agriculture. All the tools and techniques are related to agrarian tools and techniques. And in relations of production, there is lords and there are serfs. Now, according to Marx, in all mode of production, the forces of production will change in a faster rate or at a faster rate, right? Because it is quantitative in nature. Now, with the development of technology, with the development of tools, right, especially with the invention of steam engine, we are now in a capacity to start factory production. But in order for this forces of production, in order for the factory production to further expand, the existing relations of production act as a hindrance. Why? Because in the existing relations of production, the serfs or the labor is tied to the land. And this particular relation between the serf and lord is permanent in nature. For the expansion of the industrial system, they need mobile and free labor, right? As a result, the emerging classes, due to the emerging forces of production, they will get in conflict with the existing classes. In this conflict between the emerging class and the existing classes, who will become victorious? The emerging classes. Why? Because due to the internal class contradictions, due to the antagonism between the serfs and lords, serfs will definitely support the emerging class because they expect them to give them a better future. As a result, at the end of this conflict, a new relations of production will emerge, and in this case, the new relations of production is capitalist or the bourgeoisie and the proletariat or the workers. Now, this will lead to a new mode of production, clear, which is the capitalist mode of production. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because see, at every stage, the exploited class will hope for a better future. That is the reason why they are siding up with the emerging classes. But ultimately, they will understand that in this new form also, they will be exploited. See, the exploitation continues, but the form of exploitation will keep on changing. In the ancient society, it was based on slavery. In feudal system, it was based on the lord-serf relation. In capitalist system, it is again based on the bourgeois, that kind of exploitation by the capitalist, especially related to wages, right? So the kind of exploitation will vary. In slave society, the slaves did not have any kind of freedom or rights, right? But when it comes to that of the feudal society, they started getting some kind of rights. They can marry, they can, raise a family of their own. So such kind of rights were given to the serfs. Now, when it comes to the capitalist system, more freedom is given to the worker, but at the same time, the kind of support or the wages that they get has actually come down. And as a result, the inequality has also expanded, exploitation has went to another different level, right? So have-nots will always be subjected to exploitation. Is it clear? Okay, so this is dialectical materialism, or how changes happen due to changes in material conditions. Clear? All set? Okay. Now, next topic that we are going to discuss. So we have covered how change happen in society. This is the way in which changes happen. Next, what is the history of change? So in order to understand history of change in the Marxian theory, we need to go through historical materialism. So what is historical materialism? It is nothing but the application of dialectical materialism in the history. We are applying dialectical materialism to the past to understand how changes happen in the past based on changes in material condition. So this is exactly what we learned in historical materialism. So based on the changes in material condition and the subsequent changes in all other aspects of society, Marx have classified society into four. What are those four different societies that Marx has classified in historical materialism? Primitive communism, then primitive communism, ancient society, feudal society and capitalist society. These are the four different societies that we need to understand. Clear? Okay. So let's start with primitive communism. Now, see, when UPSC asks this question, okay, when UPSC is asking you to write about historical materialism, you need not have to write about the contradiction and the conflict that has happened between the emerging forces of production and the existing relations of production in each and every stage. That will make your answer too elaborate, okay, and that is also not needed. You need to explain the features of all these different societies, and you can also mention what led to change to the next society or next mode of production. Say for example, let us start with primitive communism. Now what are the features of primitive communism? What are the features of the society? Yeah, thus there is no private property. That is the first and foremost most important aspect of primitive communism. Then, as there is no private property, there is no class divisions. What are divisions were there in the society was mainly based on age or gender, right? So everything was owned by everyone, like that is communal ownership of means of production. There is no relations of production as such. Now, when did the shift happen from primitive communism to ancient society? Is it agricultural tools? Yeah, it is basically, see, as the forces of production started improving, we started inventing metals and stuff. And by using the metals, we started clearing the forest and we were able to expand agriculture. And when we expanded agriculture, there was a situation that we were able to produce more than the subsistence requirement. Meaning, we were able to produce goods which is over and above required for our consumption. Meaning, we have produced surplus goods. Now, when there is surplus goods, few people will try to appropriate that surplus, right? So if we have produced more than what we require for consumption, definitely the overproduction or the surplus production will be appropriated by few people. Now, according to Marx, the few powerful groups among the primitive communism or the tribal heads, all those people, they started appropriating the surplus. And once they started appropriating the surplus, private property emerged in the society, and that has led to the next mode of production, which is ancient mode of production. Meaning, in primitive communism, there was no relations of production, but as and when the private property emerged, it led to emergence of new relations of production that has led to new mode of production, which is the ancient mode of production. Now, in ancient mode of production, as you know, the most important aspect of forces of production was labor or human beings. As a result, here those who own the labor or human beings became the haves, and those who do not own became the have-nots. In ancient society, this took the form of masters and slaves. So, along with appropriating the surplus, these powerful groups also started appropriating the labor as well as appropriating people or human beings. Now, they became the masters and they controlled slaves. As the technology was very poor, it was very basic. When it comes to that of forces of production, you must understand that at that point of time it was very basic. So, as there were no technology or there was minimal improvement in the forces of production, labor or human beings was the main source of production. Clear? As a result, those who own human beings became the masters or haves. Is it clear? Now, what are the features of ancient society? When it comes to that of the ancient society, here masters appropriated the labor of the slaves, and whatever produce was created by the slaves was used by the masters to lead a luxurious life. Right? Here the division was mainly based on, you know, yeah, master slave division as well as forces of production or the physical means of production. It was basic in nature. Basic technologies are used. Okay. It was largely based on human labor and human power. Okay. Now, why did the transition to the third stage happen, which is the feudal society? What was the reason for that? Private property has already emerged, and as a result, ancient society or ancient mode of production has emerged. What was the reason for the emergence of feudal mode of production? See, according to Marx, no. Because of the, see, you need to understand that the change starts happening in the forces of production, right? That will induce changes in the relations of production. So you must think about the changes that has happened in the forces of production. What will be the changes that might have happened in forces of production? Better tools, right? Better agrarian tools were developed. As a result, there was a situation where we can produce high quantity agrarian products by using minimal land. Now, as a result, what happened was new classes started emerging, which were the feudal lords, right? These feudal lords wanted to implement these new technology in agriculture so that they can increase the productivity. When they can increase the productivity, they can also increase the surplus. But for them, the existing relations of production acted as a hindrance, which is the master-slave relation. Why did it act as a hindrance? Because for the new emerging class of lords, they cannot trust the slaves with the new technology, because slaves do not have any kind of incentives to improve agricultural productivity. As a result, they do not have any incentive to use new technology also, right? Because participation of the labor is also important for improving productivity. As a result, they decided to overthrow the existing relations of production and to set up a new relations of production. In the new relations of production, what they planned was they will be giving a portion of the produce to the serfs. As a result, they have incentive, right? As a result, they will be motivated to produce more. Now, this conflict between the emerging class of landlords and the existing relations of production has led to new relations of production. Are you getting the point? So, in feudal mode of production, you need to understand that in ancient society or in ancient mode of production, there was forces of production and relations of production. This relations of production was further divided into masters and slaves. Here, due to emerging forces of production in the form of better agrarian technology or tools, new class of lords started emerging in society. Now, for them, in order to expand this new forces of production, the existing relations of production acted as a hindrance, right? So they wanted to overthrow this one. They wanted to take it down. So what they did was they gave support to the slaves. And also I've already mentioned that as due to there is an internal contradiction in the society between that of slaves and masters, slaves will definitely support the emerging class. And in this struggle, who came victorious? The emerging class of lords became victorious, and as a result, a new relations of production established in the society, which was the new relations of production, lords and serfs. Now, this relations of production, with the emergence of this new relations of production, a new mode of production was also established, which is the feudal mode of production. Clear? And finally, as I've already discussed, the process of how from feudal system to capitalist system that transition happened, like I've already explained, right? With emerging forces of production, what happened? New classes of industrialists emerged. For them, the existing relations of production acted as a hindrance. They wanted to overthrow it, and they also got support from the serfs because of the internal class contradiction or mutual antagonism. Now that has led to development of new relations of production and thereby a new mode of production. See, basically in slave society, slaves do not have any rights, or they also do not get share of the produce that they create. But when it comes to that of the feudal society, serfs get a share of the produce that they create or that they produce. That is the motivation, that is the incentive. Plus, they also get rights because in slave society, the slaves are not supposed to marry. they are under the ownership of the masters. Masters have complete control over the slaves, but that is not the case when it comes to that of the feudal society. Serfs enjoy certain level of freedom, plus they also get a share of the produce. Clear? So that is the difference. See, at every stage, thing is, the existing have-nots are attracted to the new classes because they expect, as I've already mentioned, that their future will become better. But that is just an expectation according to Marx. Because at the successive mode of production, they will again get exploited until proletariat revolution happens. Clear? Is it clear, everyone? So, in case of historical materialism, you need to understand the classification of society into 4 different stages by Marx based on different modes of production. And in order to identify the transition from one mode of production to another mode of production, Marx used the concept of dialectical materialism. That is why we say that historical materialism is application of dialectical materialism. Clear? Is it okay? All right. So now we have covered history of change. Now the last part is future of society. Now in order to understand future of society, we need to go through the concept of class conflict. Okay. See, thing is you need to study and understand all these concepts as a continuity. Because mostly what happens is you study this in a compartmental way. You learn mode of production, you learn economic determinism, you learn dialectical materialism, but you don't understand the entire connection between these concepts. See, one leads to another. From mode of production comes economic determinism. From these two concepts, then Marx wanted to explain change. There he used dialectical idealism was an inspiration for him, right? And from materialism of Feuerbach, he combined those two and created dialectical materialism. By explaining the process of change, he wanted to analyze how change happened in the past. So he applied this dialectical materialism in the past and he introduced the concept of historical materialism. In historical materialism, he explained about different modes of production and different societies, right? 4 different societies was explained, and then he explained what will happen in the future. Now that is also based on this idea of dialectical materialism. Clear? Now, according to Marx, what will happen in the future? In order to explain that, he used the concept of class conflict. See, Marx is easy to study if you understand this connection, because beyond this connection, there is only one important concept left, which is alienation. Right? So, in under 2 hours, you can actually cover the entire portion of Marx. So that means in one day, like if you spend 12 hours, you will be able to complete entire thinkers. So it is not as simple as I'm saying it right now. Okay, it is a bit more complicated, but definitely you can cover the entire thinkers. I think you can cover it in like 5 to 6 days if you spend at least like 4 to 5 hours a day for sociology. Okay, it's not that difficult. Thing is, you need to understand the connection, you need to understand the concept. Don't focus on by hearting the things, because that is where I see most of the people make mistake. They just try to by heart the things. Like when you look into Marx, you just start going, you will read the first line, you will try to by heart it. Second sentence, by heart it. Third sentence, by heart it. By the time you reach the examination hall, you will forget the second sentence. You will write the first sentence, then you start recollecting what was that second sentence. Like, if you lose just one word, you will not be able to complete the answer. And this is the major problem that the students face while writing sociology. Because everyone tell me that, it's easy to study sociology, but it is difficult to write sociology. Now, I don't understand how that happened, because if you find a subject is easy to learn, then definitely it should also be easy to reproduce and write. But there is some kind of a missing link in between, and from my communication with the students, what I understood is many of them are trying to by heart. Okay. See, you don't have to do it, because for UPSC, what they will be looking for is whether you are able to clearly articulate, clearly express that concept. In that process, you should not miss any of the keywords. That is important. Yeah, please tell me. Okay. In the answer of historical materialism, can we write this that it is application? Yeah, you can definitely write that it is an application of dialectical materialism to study the past. Question was asked to, okay, yeah, fine. So, is it clear, all of you? All set? Okay. Now, let us discuss class conflict. So, what is class conflict? For Marx, there are only two classes. Very simple, right? Which are those two classes? Haves and have-nots. Depending on the society, it will change. Right? In ancient society, it is masters and slaves. In feudal society, feudal lords and serfs. In capitalist society, capitalist or bourgeoisie and proletariats or workers. Right? Now, according to Marx, what is the nature of relationship between these two classes? There is a contradictory relationship between these two classes. Why is there a contradiction between these two classes? Yeah, because the interest of these two classes are conflicting. Right, there is a mutual conflict between the interest of these two classes. What is that conflict? What is that kind of contradiction in the interest of these two classes? Yeah, because when it comes to that of the haves, for them, what do they want? They want to increase their profits, right? In order to increase their profits, what will they do? They will exploit the have-nots, right? So for haves, they want to increase their profit. For that, they need to exploit, right? Because without exploitation, they won't be able to earn profits. Now, in order to explain that particular concept in a bit more detail, you need to understand, according to Marx, what is the profit that is earned by the haves, or how does the haves earn profit? Surplus labor, right? Especially in the capitalist system, according to Marx, the actual profit that is received by the capitalist is nothing but the surplus value created by the labor. So what is surplus value? According to Marx, if suppose a labor is producing 10 units of an item, okay, the cost of physical means of production is fixed. For producing 10 units of an item, the cost of physical means of production is suppose 500 rupees, meaning all the raw materials and stuff, it costs 500 rupees. Okay. But the item, the 10 units of that particular produce, however, is sold for 1500 rupees. Okay. Now, let us understand the concept of surplus labor by using this statistics. Okay, 500 rupees is the cost of raw materials and the physical means of production. 1500 is the final rate at which the product is sold, and labor charges paid is 500 rupees. Okay. Now, according to Marx, the items worth 500 rupee is converted into item worth 1500 rupee by the labor. Right, that conversion of those raw materials into the final product which cost rupee 1500 is done by the labor, right? So the entire 1000 rupees, which is the value addition, right? 500 rupees raw materials is now being sold for 1500 rupees, meaning there is a value addition of 1000 rupees. Now this entire 1000 rupee is nothing but the effort put in by the labor. Instead of paying them 1000 rupees, capitalist is just paying them 500, right? This is known as the surplus value created by the labor. For the labor who creates a value of 1000, capitalist is only paying them 500. The remaining 500 is the profit of capitalist. So if the capitalists want to increase their profit, what will they have to do? They have to reduce the wages that they give to the labor, because that is the only means by which the capitalist can increase their profits according to Marx. Is it clear? Right? So that is why we say that in order for the haves to improve their profit, they will have to exploit the labor. Okay? On the other hand, for the have-nots, what do they want? They want to improve their condition. That is their basic need. Because they are being exploited, they want to somehow improve their condition, they want to end exploitation. So, if they want to end exploitation, what will they have to do? They have to overthrow the capitalists. Right? As long as capitalists or the bourgeoisie exist, they won't be able to overcome the exploitation. Now, this makes the interest of these two classes mutually contradicting. One group want to exploit the other group, and the other group want to overthrow this group. Now, this is the reason for class conflict or existence of contradiction between the two classes according to Marx. Is it clear? Okay. Now, according to Marx, in order to understand the class conflict, we also need to understand, or we need to connect this with the concept of economic determinism. Then only you will be able to understand this concept holistically. Now, the ownership of means of production does not merely make the capitalist the owning class of capital or economic resources, it will also make them control all other institutions in the society. Right? See, the owning class is not just merely owning the economic resources, they are also owning and controlling all other institutions in the society, because we have already covered the concept of economic determinism. Now, as they are controlling all other institutions in the society, they will be able to control, or they will be able to manipulate the non-owning class through false consciousness. Right. So, what is the concept of false consciousness? What do you understand by false consciousness? According to Marx, the non-owning class, even though they are facing exploitation, they do not really understand the exploitation that they face in the system. The reason why they are not able to understand the exploitation that they face is because the owning class or the haves are able to ideologically condition them by using several institutions like the education system, media, religion, etc. Now let us take the example of religion here. Right? When it comes to religion chapter, you might have come across the Marxian perspective on religion, where Marx say that religion is the opium of the masses. Why did he say that? Because he said that religion actually is making a virtue out of suffering. Meaning, religion is helping the capitalist to further their exploitation by creating false ideas among the exploited classes. Right? Exploited classes believe that those who have better life in this world will suffer in the afterlife, and those who have suffering in this life will have a better life after death. Right? This idea, according to Marx, is created by the capitalist and spread through religion in order to avoid any revolution or movement against the capitalist system. So, by using these institutions as ideological devices, the capitalists are able to spread false consciousness among the have-nots, and as a result, they do not question the capitalists for the exploitation that they face. Clear? So, across all mode of production, according to Marx, even though the have-nots are facing exploitation, they never question or they never revolt against this exploitation, because they are ideologically conditioned. The false consciousness is spread by the haves. and they control them. That is why Marx say that your social existence also control your consciousness, right? Your social existence means whether you are have or have not. That determines your consciousness. If you are a have not, then you will be conditioned ideologically and you will be subject to these false consciousness. Right? Is it clear? Are you getting the point? Okay. Now, through this concept, you need to understand, according to Marx, the only way through which the right class consciousness will emerge among this class, when does that happen? Okay. Yeah. So, in order to explain how that process of from false class consciousness to right class consciousness, how that transition happened, Marx used two concepts, which is class in itself and class for itself. In class in itself, Marx mentioned that here the have-nots exist as a objective class. They are under false class consciousness. They are not able to identify the kind of exploitation that they are facing in the capitalist system or in any mode of production. Now, why they are not able to identify the kind of exploitation that they face? Because the haves are controlling all other institutions in the society. They are using those institutions to spread false consciousness. So those institutions act as ideological conditioning devices of the haves. Now, whenever you are explaining these two concepts, as I have already mentioned, you can explain it in your own terms, but you have to definitely use three important terms. One is false class consciousness, ideological conditioning device, right? As well as you have to mention about the economic determinism, as the owning class or the haves own and control all other institutions in the society. They are able to use them as ideological conditioning devices and thereby spreading false consciousness. The only requirement is you need to mention these three important keywords. Other than that, everything else you can write in your own terms, okay, and try to learn in your own terms as well, because otherwise it will be very difficult for you to, okay, very difficult for you to reproduce that. Clear? Have you got the idea? All set. Now, according to Marx, from class in itself, there will be a transition to class for itself. What is class for itself? It means they exist as a subjective class where they understand the kind of exploitation that they face in the capitalist system. Now, at this stage, according to Marx, what will happen? When they get the right class consciousness, they will start questioning the exploitation that they face and they will try to overthrow the capitalist or the haves. Right? Now, why does this transition happen? According to Marx, there are several reasons, and this transition only happens in the capitalist mode of production. In other modes of production, this transition does not happen. There is no transition from class in itself to class for itself. It happens only in industrial mode of production or the capitalist mode of production. The reason for that is, one is the capitalist mode of production compared to any other modes of production is highly exploitative, because at every stage they are trying to pauperize the have-nots. They are trying to cut short their wages so that they can earn better profits. So there is high level of exploitation in the capitalist system. Second thing is, it is only in the capitalist system or the industrial mode of production that the workers started assembling in a factory. There is a social nature of production, right? When it comes to feudal mode of production, all the feudal serfs are working in a particular land, like that they are separated from each other, right? There will be like few number of serfs that will be working in one lord's land, right? In master slave relation also they are also separated, but in factories all the workers from different parts come together to work in the factory, and when they all come together to work in the factory, they will be able to understand the kind of exploitation that they face. So the social nature of work or the factory based production has also resulted in the development of right class consciousness. Is it clear? And along with that, Marx also explained three other important reasons, which are: one is homogenization, then pauperization, then proletarianization. What is homogenization, pauperization, and proletarianization? What do you mean by these three terms? Meaning, when it comes to homogenization, it means, according to Marx, in capitalist system, going forward, the difference between the skills of workers will come down. They will all be homogeneous in nature. Because, see, when it comes to capitalist system or any other modes of production, there the working class may not be homogeneous. There can be differences among the working class based on the skills, right? Based on the experience, based on the earnings that they get. But according to Marx, in the capitalist system, over a period of time, what happened? The differences between these classes, or the difference between the proletariat class, will come down and they will all become homogeneous or uniform. Now, for that, you can give the example of artificial intelligence if you want to connect it with the contemporary society. Because right now, people are saying that there will not be distinction between skilled and unskilled workers, because the artificial intelligence and robotics may replace a lot of skilled jobs as well, right? So there can be instance of homogenization. Second is pauperization, meaning the gap between the rich and poor is increasing. There is high level of inequality. According to Marx, going forward in capitalist system, what happened? The inequality between the rich and poor will start increasing. Now that will also create tensions and frustration, that will also lead to development of right class consciousness. And finally, proletarianization. According to Marx, all those who are in between, that the middle layer between that of the proletariats and the capitalists, what is that middle layer being called? Petty bourgeoisies, meaning the small businesses, small owners, they will also become proletariats. Lumpen proletariats means they are below that of proletariats. They are the gundas and those kind of group. Okay. So the petty bourgeoisies, or those who are occupying the middle layer, that is the small businesses, they will also ultimately become proletariats. Why do they become proletariats? Because when the capitalists start expanding, when they start growing, due to the stiff competition from the capitalists, these small businesses will not be able to survive. They will have to close down their businesses, and those owners will become laborers or proletariats. According to Marx, because of these reasons, what will happen? There will be a transition from class in itself to class for itself. According to Marx, this transition happens at the heights of an economic crisis. Because at the heights of economic crisis, the realization that the right class consciousness will come up because of the increasing frustration. Clear? Now, once they get the right class consciousness, what will happen? What will be the result? They will overthrow the capitalist, and it will lead to a proletariat revolution will take place. And at the end of the proletariat revolution, who will win? The proletariats will win because they outnumber the bourgeois. And once they win, then it will be the dictatorship of the proletariats, meaning a socialist society will come up, and later on the socialist society will transition to communist society, where the state will also wither away. According to Marx, in the communist society there will be no private property, there will be no classes, there will be no state. It will be a stateless, classless society. The right class consciousness, that transition from class in itself to class for itself, and the revolution. See, the reason for class in itself to class for itself is mentioned, like the factory level production, the social nature of production, exploitation in the capitalist system, etc. But the proletariat revolution, according to Marx, will happen at the heights of the economic, crisis. Even though the right class consciousness must have achieved even before that, but the revolution will happen at the heights of the economic crisis. Yeah, after revolution, they will set up a socialist society. That is the dictatorship of proletariats, communist society. No, no. First the revolution, then socialist society, and slowly the socialist society will move towards communist society. And after communist society, there is no further change. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. All set? Now, all right. So, as we have covered the nature of society, we have covered how change happens in society, the history of change, as well as the future of society. Now, let us discuss the criticisms. Can you guys let me know the criticisms? You have to tell, because it is proletarianization. Does homogenization mean division of labor will diminish? Yeah, correct. Because see, what happens is in homogenization, it means the difference between the skills, difference between the proletariats will diminish. Okay, they will all become the same. Pauperization means, um, see, the difference between the rich and the poor will become wide, it will widen, meaning the rich will become richer and the poor will become poorer. That is known as pauperization. See, all these aspects you can find contemporary examples for this, right? See, let's take the examples for all of these concepts in the contemporary sense. Let's start with homogenization. You can mention artificial intelligence and robotics. So if suppose UPSC is asking you to write the current relevance of Marxian theory or the Marxian concept, you can definitely quote this example. You can use the term homogenization. Right? Marx have mentioned that in capitalist system, homogenization of labor will take place, and that is definitely taking place under artificial intelligence and robotics. Right? Because we are talking about robotic surgery. Now, when you look into the difference between the labor force, one of the major differences between the skilled professionals and the manual laborers. Now, if there is an opportunity or if the robotic surgery become more prominent and popular, doctors will not have much job to do, right? So as a result, there will not be much difference between a doctor and any other person because everyone will be losing their job. See, I'm not, making doomsday predictions and all, but I'm just exaggerating it a bit so that you can add it as an example for Marx. Okay, it may or may not happen, but definitely it can be considered as an example for the Marxian theory. Second is when we are discussing about the proletarianization. There again, currently we can see that it is not happening because embourgeoisement is happening, meaning the middle class is growing. Okay, so for that, I think we cannot give any example right now. Post LPG inequality, for that you can mention pauperization, right? I'm mentioning about proletarianization. You can say that, but I mean, see, for proletarianization, you can mention Green Revolution, right? What happened during Green Revolution? All the small farmers, they were not able to adopt Green Revolution techniques. As a result, they had to sell their land and they became agricultural laborers. That is an example for proletarianization, right? But Green Revolution happened in 1960s, 70s, etc. So when we are discussing the contemporary angle, we cannot, yeah. Increasing informalization, you can say, but that mostly suit pauperization because see, informalization means that inequality is increasing, the wages are reducing. See, the middle class or the middle layer is not transitioning themselves to that of the proletariats. If that happens, we can call it as proletarianization. The middle layer becoming or getting into that of the labor layer. So once COVID stage also you can say, but again, that is all mostly relevant to that of pauperization, because there again we are discussing about the rising inequality, right? So that actually points to that of pauperization. Proletarianization, you can mention green revolution. If suppose they're not mentioning the see, even if they ask contemporary aspect, you can say that small farmers in India currently are becoming agricultural laborers. That is still happening in India. During green revolution, it happened mostly in the green revolution belt, but now across the country, small farmers are selling their land because it is not becoming viable for them to do agriculture in small lands. So you can mention some of them are leaving their land behind, they are not selling it, they are leaving their land behind and they are migrating to the urban areas in search of non-agricultural jobs. So that is also an example of proletarianization, because they are landowners, but now they are no longer staying as owners, but instead they are becoming workers. So you can mention that in agrarian scenario, right? So pauperization, you can quote Oxfam report, right? So you can mention all sorts of, data related to rising inequality that can be quoted for India as well as for international level. Is it clear? See, shrinking in middle class can definitely be quoted as an example of proletarianization. That can be done. There is no problem with that. The class in itself turns into class for itself because of these reasons. Like we just mentioned, right? According to Marx, the transition happens because of 5 reasons. Primarily because of 2 reasons, which is high level of exploitation in the capitalist mode of production, then social nature of production in capitalist system, and also we discussed 3 other points: homogenization, pauperization, and proletarianization. So that is the reason. Yeah, for proletarianization, you can quote e-commerce giants, because after Amazon, Myntra, Flipkart, look, you can see that lots of small shops, they had to close down, right? I usually quote this example where in Kerala we can see that lots of like small textile shops have closed down. Earlier, it used to be a prominent thing in most of the towns, but now only larger ones are there. Small textile shops are hard to find these days. Yeah, you can quote the example. Yeah, you can quote the example of malls. Once the malls come in a particular area, in the surrounding area, small shops and stuff, they are also closing down because of lack of business. So you can mention that. You can mention about informalization for pauperization, right? Outsourcing and MNCs. You can quote all those stuff. See, for Marx, you can easily find contemporary relevance, because the connection that economic aspect and exploitation, economic determinism, you can find everything in the contemporary society as well. But the problem is, many of the predictions done by Marx has not materialized, right? Say for example, Marx predicted that a revolution will take place in industrial society, but instead revolution took place in agrarian society like China, Russia, etc. So that is one criticism that you can mention. Second, according to Weber, again you can mention unidimensional view, right? Because Marx is connecting everything with the economic aspect, but in reality, other aspects are also influential. So you can mention about that. Then, embourgeoisement, because currently we say that world around there is increase in middle class. So instead of proletarianization, embourgeoisement is happening. So what is embourgeoisement? It is the opposite of proletarianization. Meaning proletariats are becoming middle class. Okay. Now this was mainly quoted by Weber. So you can quote Weber here. Yeah, you can also mention that in contemporary society, work has become more heterogeneous, right? So you can mention about that angle also, because division of labor is increasing. Specialization has increased. So you can mention about that. Then multipolar. See, basically multi-causal approach is required. That is the thing. Because we already mentioned about the unidimensional aspect, right? So Marx said that everything, he speaks about that unidimensional view, or he actually takes a unidimensional view of society. But other aspects need to be considered. Caste, religion, yeah. Hmm. You can quote Weber there. You can mention that according to Weber, there are 4 classes instead of just 2 classes. What are those 4 classes according to Weber? Property bourgeois, then propertyless, white collar professionals, petty bourgeoisie, and proletariats. For Marx, there are only 2 classes, bourgeois and proletariat. So you can mention that as well. Is yet to happen, yeah. We already mentioned that, right? Because Marx predicted revolution to happen in capitalist society, but instead it happened in agrarian society. So you can mention all, you can quote all those examples. Okay. Ah. Oh. Yeah, see, basically, there are viewpoints that instead of labor becoming a single unit, there are multiple different kind of identification among the laborers, right? So Marx expected that there will be this transition from class in itself to class for itself. In order for that transition to happen, there should be some level of solidarity among the workers. But it is hard to find that level of solidarity because of other identity markers and association based on that among the workers. Right? Workers associate based on religion, based on caste, based on region, based on language. And for them, the class is towards the end of the list. So as a result, a class-based solidarity and unity among the workers is not happening as expected by Marx. Right? Politicization is happening among the working class, which was not explained or which was not, kind of considered by Marx. Labor unions, that is also another division among the labor force, right? So instead of that unity, workers are becoming more divided. You can mention about that. Clear? So try to understand the concept. Once you understand the concept, you will also be able to understand and write the criticism. You will not find it difficult to bring criticisms. Okay, in that case. All right. Now, let's discuss the final topic, which is alienation. So, what is alienation? Are you guys getting bored? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's almost like 20 minutes left. Now, so even if it is getting bored, there is no other option. We'll complete the chapter. Okay. We need to complete Marx. So that day after tomorrow, we'll complete or we'll do Durkheim. Okay. See, one thing that the output that I desire from this session is at least you should be able to, or you must be able to think about thinkers, not as individual topics, but instead you should have a clear understanding of how their concepts are interrelated, and it should stay in your mind as a story. Okay, that is what I expect out of these sessions. Okay, once you are able to recollect thinkers in this particular form, you will definitely be able to write good answers. There's no doubt about that, because it is not difficult at all to understand these concepts. Very simple. Okay, thing is, you complicate it while you are learning. Now that should be avoided. All right, all set. Okay, now let us. Predicting victory of proletariat is not certain and just speculation. Feminist critique, okay. Ignoring patriarchy, correct. Only economic determinism taken into account, yeah, correct. Yeah, all these points can be used as an exam. All these points can be used. See, thing is, you can come up with several number of points. Okay. See, there are instances when we start discussing about the criticisms of a particular thinker in the class. usually in discussion, more number of points actually come up in the class, which is not there in the notes also. Because once you start thinking, you will be able to bring better points. Okay, you need not have to rely on one single source for that. You can also use your knowledge, your intellect. Okay. So let's focus on or go to alienation. So what is alienation? Simple, it's very easy and simple to learn alienation. Dehumanizing, disenchanting effect of working in capitalist system. See, the basic idea is, according to Marx, okay, the basic, essence, he called it as the essence of being human, is to actively participate in the production process. Because from the beginning itself, human beings were always involved in the production. Okay, we were using our creative skills to produce goods and services that cater to the human needs. And according to Marx, it was through production that human beings were able to control the nature around us. Right? See, earlier when it comes to human beings, we were afraid of the nature, right? That is how the early religions came up, like naturism. We were afraid of the nature and the natural aspects, and then so we started worshipping the nature, and that became, a form of, origin of religion. So, according to Marx, by actively participating in the production process, at every successive stage, we started controlling the environment. Right? Right now, we are in a particular stage where we are able to overcome the, heat. We are able to overcome the, cold temperature. And for those areas where they do not get rain, they are now doing cloud seeding and they are able to get rain. And sometimes it goes out of hand and it lead to flood situation, as happened in Abu Dhabi. Okay, so it might happen in like that as well. But we are having better control over the nature, and it happened because of our participation in the production process. So Marx gives too much emphasis and importance to that of our participation in production, because according to him, that is all about human beings. We are born to produce. Okay, we are born to take part in production, to use our creative skills. According to Marx, what happened in the capitalist system is, this essence of being human is being taken away from us, because the work is no longer enjoyable, the work is no longer satisfactory. Because in capitalism, what we have done is, we have went for division of labor, whereby a single task is being cut into multiple smaller tasks, and these tasks are becoming repetitive. Day in and day out, we will be performing these tasks, and it becomes boring. We will not be able to use our creative skills, because if suppose in the assembly line production, I am entrusted with the activity of tightening a bolt, day in and day out I will be doing the same thing. It does not require any kind of creativity from my end. And once I start doing the same work for a longer period of time, the work becomes just a means to an end rather than an end in itself. What is means to an end and end in itself? Means to an end means we are doing that for some other purpose. Say, for example, according to Marx, in a capitalist system, a worker is working not because of the satisfaction that they get from the work, but instead because of the money that they will get out of working. And with that money, they have to do several other things. So, work is just a means to earn money. But according to Marx, basically for human beings, work was an end in itself, meaning human beings got satisfaction from the by doing the work itself, not by expecting the remuneration. So, in capitalist system, work is no longer satisfactory, work is boring, as well as work has become a means to an end rather than an end in itself. Clear? So, why that has happened in capitalist system? There are three reasons for that. One is the capitalistic mode of production and the exploitation in the capitalist mode of production. Because in the capitalist mode of production, the capitalist control the produce, control the workers, as well as they try to maximize the exploitation so that they can maximize their profits. Now that is taking the inherent joy from the work, right, out of the work. Now next is mechanization. As in capitalist mode of production, we have moved to produce things from through machines, by using machines. the labor has become operators of machines, right? They are not able to use the creativity. Instead, they are just operating the machines, and for operating machines, they are getting the wages. Now, when we start operating the machines and not producing things by ourselves, it becomes boring, right? It becomes monotonous. That's why Marx said that humans have become cog, right, in the machines, meaning we are also becoming like a part of a machine, right? We are not doing anything separate, or we are not doing anything fun in that particular process. And finally, division of labor. Work is being, divided into multiple small tasks, and we are repeating that task, and as a result, it becomes boring and non-satisfactory. That is the ultimate aspect. Clear? Now, as we have understood the reasons, now next we have to understand the different types of alienation. What are the different types of alienation? Product alienation, meaning the produce of the labor is now appropriated completely by the capitalist. And according to Marx, one's own produce makes the worker, or one's own produce suppresses the producer. What does that mean? No. Because see, the producer or the laborer who is actually producing it, right? When they produce that product, that is appropriated by the capitalist, and by appropriating that product, capitalist is able to increase their profits. When they increase their profit, they are able to have more control over the worker. So by using the produce of the laborer, capitalist is able to further the exploitation. That is why Marx said that one's own produce suppresses the producer. Clear? Next is the process alienation. In capitalist system, the worker does not have any control over the process of production. They might not know what they are doing, why they are doing it, right? All the information is held by the management or the producer. And third is, okay, social alienation, meaning they are alienated from their co-workers. How are they alienated from the co-workers? Because of high competition, right? Because of high competition, there will not be any meaningful relationships in work. As a result, they feel alienated. And finally, self-alienation. Why self-alienation? Because they are not able to use their creativity, their innate skills. As a result, they become alienated from the self. Now, what is the solution for alienation according to Marx? Proletariat revolution. Okay. By proletariat revolution, what we'll do is we'll overthrow the capitalists, we'll overthrow the system, and there comes the communist society where each will contribute according to their ability. So there is no private property, there is no exploitation. We will be able to use our creative skills effectively, and as a result, we will not face any alienation according to Marx. So the solution for alienation is proletariat revolution and communist society. Is it clear? All set? Now, what will be the criticisms? Criticisms. Okay. So, according to Robert Bloner, we have to consider alienation as an inverted U. What is inverted U? Because according to Robert Bloner, alienation was zero, or there was no alienation when it comes to that of primitive communism. It reached its peak in assembly line production, and from there it has come down because of improvement in technology and emphasis on knowledge economy. As a result, the person's knowledge, intellect is important, so they will be able to use their creative skills. Right? Innovation is given more importance these days. As a result, each and every worker's innovative skills are being harnessed by the companies. So they get opportunity to actually use their skills. Clear? Second is, according to Weber, he say that it is not because of the production relations in the capitalist system. Instead, it is because of increasing rationalization. Right? According to Weber, rationalization is increasing in society, and we are moving to a stage of iron cage of rationality, and that is the reason for feeling of alienation. It is not because of the capitalist system or the capitalist mode of production. Clear? Then Abraham and Morgan, what did they say? Hmm. Yeah. See, basically, according to Marx, when it comes to that of people, he connected everything to that of the economic relations, relations at work, production relations and stuff. But Abraham and Morgan say that people have also developed other meaningful relationships, other community level relationships are there. Like, say, for example, religious communities or church, right? Same interest, hobbies, and stuff. So, as a result, the social alienation, as mentioned by Marx, is not there in the current society. Also, in contemporary society, you can mention that companies have also taken steps, right? Work environment has improved. There is kind of worker participation is there. Team events are there to increase social, relation in the work. Human relations approach of Elton Mayo has also, opened the eyes of these corporations to incorporate, the social relation element in organization. You can mention recognition systems, reward systems. All these can be mentioned as the steps taken by modern corporations to overcome alienation. Iron cage of rationality, according to Weber, increasingly in society, rationality is increasing. When rationality increases, what happens? The emotions or the human aspect will reduce. Right? That is the reason for alienation, according to Weber. Okay. Clear? Then other views on alienation, you can mention about the concept of anomie by Durkheim. Then white collar alienation by C.W. Mills. I hope you all know these concepts. Okay. So, see, basically, if UPSC asks this question for 20 marks, depending on the nature of question, you will have to write briefly about what is alienation, types of alienation, reasons of alienation. Then you might also have to write other views, or you have to write the criticisms. Okay. Usually for 20 marks, you will get scope for writing all of this stuff. Okay, so also based on the type of question. The alienation is a topic where there's no need of much confusion and all. Like for other parts like dialectical materialism and historical materialism, you may get confused regarding what to write in the answer, right? What to write here, what not to write. But in alienation, there is no need of such confusion. It is straightforward, simple. And regarding the other portions also, you take the previous year questions and try to attempt those questions. And if you find any problem, you can come and discuss that with me. Okay. Because once you understand the approach, okay, if suppose question is in this particular way, this is what I should write, and that kind of a sense is important. Once you get that sense, then it becomes easier. For especially for Marx. For other thinkers, I don't think such a problem is there. But for Marx, I have seen some students facing such issues where they they know the concept, but they do not understand what to write there. Okay. So that can be easily be done away with. All right. Okay. So uh, yeah. So see, basically, if you ask me what to do before prelims, I will definitely say that try to complete paper one. Now, if suppose you are starting sociology now and you want to, do something before you focus on prelims, at least for the next 2 months, you can focus on sociology paper one. And I'll specifically say paper one because, see, for paper two, it is more of the approach. For paper two, you need to understand how to approach the questions, how to bring the sociological dimensions. But for paper one, it is purely theory that you need to properly study. There's no other way out. For paper two, you can deal with many of the majority of the questions by really understanding how to give sociological perspectives, how to add these kind of dimensions in your answers, and it can be done with some practice. That can be managed between prelims and mains. But studying paper one from scratch is not possible. That you will have to do right now, and you will have to complete paper one at least twice before you go for your prelims preparation, because mostly last 2 to 3 months everyone will be focusing fully on your prelims. Before that you will have to complete at least 1 or 2 rounds. Okay, from there on you can, after prelims you can focus on answer writing and value addition, and for paper 2 you need to understand the approach, and once you get the approach you practice answer writing. You try to bring maximum sociological dimensions in general questions. All right, so focus on completing paper 1. And for paper 1 I'll say start with thinkers. That's what you should do, especially when you're doing it for the second time. For the first time maybe you can start with some minor topics and get used to the subject, but if you're starting for the first time, sorry, second time, then start with thinkers, complete the thinkers, and then go for other chapters. All right, okay. So for coming week and the next week, maybe we will be covering the entire thinkers. You can also go along with the topics, like, see, we have covered Marx today and tomorrow. If you spend some time you can read Marx completely. If you have any doubts you can clear that in the next session. Okay, likewise, if you can go forward, definitely by 2 weeks you will be able to cover, like, I'll not say 100%, but at least 70 to 80% of thinkers. That will be a great start. And from there on, you can, go to other chapters which are, much easier, right? For sociology paper one, I think many of you face issues only in thinkers chapter. Other chapters are fairly manageable. Okay, thank you so much.